You're standing at the edge of a still pond in early morning. The surface is smooth, unbroken. You can see your reflection there, and the reflection of the trees behind you and the sky. But you cannot see what lies beneath, not yet. The water holds its secrets close, hidden by the mirror it makes of itself. Then a breeze moves across the surface. Small ripples spread outward. The reflection breaks apart. And now, for just a moment, you can see through the surface into the water itself. You see the stones on the bottom, the way light moves through the deeper layers. The pond has not changed. Only your seeing has changed. This is what the word vipassana points toward. Clear seeing, insight. Not seeing more things, but seeing through the surface of things to what has always been there. We spend most of our lives looking at reflections. We see the world as we think it is, as we have been told it is, as we need it to be. We see our thoughts about things more clearly than we see the things themselves. A sound becomes a story about the sound. A sensation becomes a judgment about the sensation. A moment of sadness becomes a whole narrative about who we are and what is wrong with us. The practice of vipassana is the practice of letting the surface break, of seeing through our own stories, of looking directly at what is actually here. It begins very simply. You sit. You bring your attention to your breath, not controlling it, not making it special, just noticing it. The coolness at the nostrils as air enters. The slight pause. The warmth as air leaves. You are not trying to feel peaceful. You are not trying to become anything. You are just watching. And then something else arises, a sound from outside, a pressure in your knee, a thought about something you need to do later. This is where most of us have been trained to do one of two things. We either push the distraction away, trying to get back to some pure state of concentration, or we follow it, letting it carry us into planning or remembering or worrying. Vipassana asks for something different. It asks you to see the distraction clearly, to turn toward it with the same gentle attention you brought to the breath. What is this sound exactly? What is this sensation precisely? Not the story about it, the thing itself. You notice the knee pain is not constant. It pulses, it has texture. Sometimes it is sharp, sometimes dull. Sometimes it seems to be in one place, sometimes it spreads. You are not trying to make it go away. You are not trying to accept it or transcend it. You are simply seeing it as it is. This is the beginning of clear seeing. You start to notice that everything you experience has this quality. It arises, it changes, it passes. The breath is not one long breath, but many small sensations appearing and disappearing. The sound of a car passing is not one sound, but a series of vibrations, growing and fading. Even your thoughts, which seem so solid and continuous, are actually discrete events, each one appearing out of nowhere and dissolving back into silence. The pond is still there in front of you. The breeze keeps moving across the surface. You can see deeper now. You can see that the water itself is not still at all. It is always moving, always shifting, even when it looks perfectly calm from above. Currents you could not see before become visible. The way temperature layers create zones of different density, the way small particles drift through the light. You are not analyzing this, you are not thinking about it, you are watching it happen. In the Buddhist teachings, this clear seeing reveals three characteristics of all experience. Impermanence. Everything that arises passes away. Unsatisfactoriness. Nothing we grasp at can give us lasting peace. Non-self. There is no fixed, permanent thing at the center of experience that we can call me. These are not beliefs to adopt. They are observations to make directly. You see them in your own experience, in your own body, in your own mind. You see how you reach for pleasant sensations and try to hold them. You see how they slip away. You see how you push against unpleasant sensations and try to make them stop. You see how they persist anyway. You see how you tell yourself stories about who you are. And then you watch those stories change from moment to moment. The practice is not to fix any of this. The practice is to see it clearly, to let the surface of your assumptions break open, to look directly at what is here. This is where we begin, with breath, with body, with whatever arises in this moment, not seeking anything beyond it, not trying to achieve some special state, just learning to see what has always been here, waiting beneath the reflection. You wake and the day is already moving, the shower runs, the coffee brews, your hand reaches for the phone before your eyes have fully opened. Somewhere in all of this you are present, but not quite here. Not quite noticing what is actually happening. This is how most of life passes, not in dramatic confusion, but in a kind of soft blur, like morning mist that settles over a field and obscures the shape of trees. You know the trees are there. You have seen them before, but right now, in this moment, their edges are hidden. Their actual form is lost in the grey. The Buddha spoke about this carefully. He did not ask anyone to believe him. He did not point to scripture or tradition as proof. He said something quieter. After observation and analysis, when it agrees with reason and conduces to the good of one and all, then accept it and live by it. This is an invitation to see for yourself. Not to adopt a view because it sounds wise, but to look directly at what is happening and test it against your own experience. Vipassana means seeing clearly. It is not a special state you achieve after years of practice. It is simply the act of noticing what is here, as it is, without the mist of assumption covering it. You do not need to become someone else to do this. You do not need to fix yourself first. You only need to turn your attention toward what is already present. Right now, as you listen, something is happening in your body. Maybe there is pressure where you are sitting. Maybe your breath is moving in your chest. Maybe there is a sound in the room or a sensation in your hands. These things are occurring whether you notice them or not. But when you do notice, something shifts. The mist begins to thin. Not because you have done something impressive, but because you have stopped moving forward long enough to see where you are. Most of the time, we are not here. We are thinking about what happened earlier or what needs to happen next. We are labeling things as good or bad, wanted or unwanted. We are lost in the story of our lives rather than the actual living of them. And this is not a moral failing, it is just what the mind does when it is not trained to stay present. It drifts into the mist without realizing the trees have disappeared, but you can pause. You can stop 3 times today, just for a moment, and notice one thing you are sensing right now, not something you are thinking about. Not something you are planning or remembering, just one thing that is actually here. The coolness of air on your skin, the weight of your body, the sound of your own breathing. And when you notice it, do not name it good or bad. Do not decide if you like it or want it to change. Just let it be what it is. This is the beginning of clear seeing, not understanding, not analysis, just noticing. The mist does not lift all at once. The sun does not break through in a single moment and reveal everything. It happens slowly. One small patch of clarity, then another. You see the edge of one tree, then the curve of a branch, then the texture of bark. Each time you pause and notice, the world becomes a little more vivid, a little more real. You might think this is too simple. That real insight must be more complicated, more effortful. But the Buddha did not teach complexity. He taught observation. He taught looking at what is here and testing it against your own experience. And what you will find, if you look, is that most of your suffering comes from not seeing clearly, from reacting to the mist instead of the trees, from believing your thoughts about the moment rather than sensing the moment itself. When you pause and notice one thing, you are not trying to achieve calm. You are not trying to feel better or become more mindful. You are simply practicing the act of being here, of letting your awareness rest on what is actually present. And in that small act, something loosens. The habit of moving forward without looking begins to weaken. The mist starts to clear, not because you have pushed it away, but because you have stopped adding to it. This is how clarity begins, not with understanding, but with noticing, not with effort, but with attention. You do not need to know what it all means. You only need to see what is here. We spend so much time inside the theatre of thought, planning, remembering, rehearsing what we might say or should have said. The body becomes background, a vehicle we barely notice until it demands attention through pain or hunger. And yet, the body is here, always here, holding everything we have not yet felt. There is a river that flows whether or not anyone watches it. Water moves over stone, through narrow passages and wide bends, carrying what it carries without pause. It does not wait for acknowledgement. It does not need to be understood. The body is like this. Breath enters and leaves. The heart beats. Sensations arise in the shoulders, the jaw, the palms. All of this continues while we live 3 sentences ahead in our minds. Vipassana means seeing clearly, not thinking clearly, not analyzing clearly, but seeing. And what we are invited to see first is not some distant truth, but the simple fact of what is already present. The body is the ground of all knowing. Attend to it with care, for it does not lie. When the mind says one thing and the body says another, the body is usually telling the truth. You might notice this when you believe you are calm, but your shoulders are raised and tight. Or when you think you are listening to someone, but your hands are clenched. The mind can construct any story, the body just reports. So the practice begins with a very small gesture. Not a grand meditation posture, not a formal retreat into stillness. Just this, sit quietly and feel the weight of your hands resting wherever they are without moving them. Maybe they are on your lap. Maybe one hand rests on the arm of a chair. Maybe they are folded or lying open. It does not matter where. What matters is that you feel their weight, not the idea of weight, not the memory of what hands feel like. The actual sensation, right now, of heaviness or lightness, warmth or coolness, contact with fabric or skin or air. This is the difference between thinking about the body and sensing it directly. One is a map, the other is the ground itself. At first, the mind may offer commentary. It may say, "Yes, I feel my hands," and then drift immediately into planning dinner or reviewing the day. This is natural. The mind has spent years learning to narrate rather than notice. But the hands are still here. The weight is still present. You can return. The river flows whether or not anyone watches it, and the body continues its quiet report whether or not you are listening. But when you do listen, something shifts. The sensations are not dramatic. There is no surge of energy, no sudden revelation, just the steady presence of what has always been true. Pressure where the hand meets the leg. A faint pulse in the fingertips. The texture of cloth or the coolness of air. This is not a small thing. This is the beginning of clear seeing. Because once you notice the difference between thinking about your hands and feeling them, you begin to notice how often you live in the former. How much of your day is spent in the theatre, watching the mind's production, while the body sits unattended in the audience. There is tension held in places you have not checked in years. The belly, the throat, the space between the eyebrows. These places tighten in response to thoughts, to memories, to the low hum of unease that often runs beneath awareness. And because you are not sensing them directly, they remain. They accumulate. The body becomes a storage room for everything the mind has not yet acknowledged. But when you bring attention to the hands, just the hands, you are practicing a kind of return. You are stepping out of the theatre and sitting down in the body itself. And from here, the view is different. Thoughts still come, but they are not the only thing. There is also this, the weight, the warmth, the quiet presence of sensation that does not argue or explain. You do not need to do anything with what you feel. You do not need to fix it or understand it or make it more comfortable. You are simply feeling it. This is enough. The body does not ask for interpretation, it asks for attention. So the hands rest and you feel them. And when the mind wanders as it will, you feel them again. Not as a task to complete, but as a place to return. The river flows, the body breathes, and you are here sensing what is true. You might notice something strange when you first sit down to watch the breath. The moment you turn your attention toward it, the breath changes. It becomes deliberate. You begin to manage it, shaping each inhale, timing each exhale. What was natural a moment ago now feels like a task you must perform. This is not a failure. This is the habit of control meeting something that has never needed controlling. The breath has been breathing you since before you had language. It continued while you slept last night. It moved through you while you were reading, walking, eating breakfast. It never once asked for instruction. And yet, when we sit down to practice, we reach for the reins. There is a teaching from the Zen tradition that points to this directly. When you breathe, let the breath breathe you. When you sit, let the sitting sit you. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But the instruction is not about doing something new. It is about stopping something old. The breath is like wind moving through an open window. It does not ask permission. It does not pause at the threshold, waiting for approval. It simply moves. If the window is open, the wind enters. If the window is closed, the wind continues past. The wind has no opinion about the window. The window does not control the wind. Right now, you might be holding the window half open, one hand on the frame, deciding how much air should pass through. You might be adjusting the angle, testing the flow, wondering if you're doing it right. This is what happens when we try to observe the breath while still gripping it. So here is the practice, and it is smaller than you think. Notice 3 breaths without changing them, just 3. Not 3 perfect breaths, not 3 deep breaths, 3 breaths exactly as they arrive. Feel where the movement begins and where it ends. You are not making the breath happen. You are noticing that it is already happening. The first breath might still carry some effort. You might feel yourself guiding it even slightly. That is fine. You are not trying to be perfect. You are trying to see what is actually there. The second breath may come a little softer. You might notice that the inhale starts on its own, somewhere low in the belly or high in the chest. You did not decide where it would begin. It simply began. The third breath is where the shift can happen. By now, the breath has had a chance to find its own rhythm. You are no longer the one steering, you are the one watching. And in that watching, something becomes clear. The breath is not yours to control. It never was. This does not mean you cannot influence the breath. Of course you can. You can hold it, deepen it, slow it down. But that is a different activity. That is breathing with intention. What we are learning here is how to step back and let the breath move the way wind moves through an open window, without asking permission, without needing you to shape it. When you let the breath breathe you, you begin to see how much of your life you have been trying to manage in the same way. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, all of them moving through on their own, and yet you stand at the threshold, hand on the frame, deciding what should enter and what should not. The practice of vipassana is the practice of seeing clearly, and what you see when you watch the breath without interfering is that most of what arises does not need your hand on it. The breath knows how to breathe. The body knows how to sit. The mind knows how to think. You do not have to perform any of it. This is not about letting go in some grand final way. It is about noticing for just 3 breaths that the wind is already moving. You are not the wind. You are the open window. And when you stop trying to control what passes through, you begin to feel what it is like to simply be present while life moves. So sit for a moment. Let the next breath come without shaping it. Feel where it starts. Feel where it ends. Let the breath breathe you. Let the sitting sit you. And notice what it feels like to witness something that has always been happening without you needing to make it happen. We look up at the sky and see a cloud resting there. It appears complete. It has edges and a shape we could almost name. For a moment it seems entirely still. But if we watch without turning away, we begin to notice something. The edge we thought was fixed has already softened. A wisp has detached. The form we saw a moment ago is no longer quite the same. The cloud was never holding still. It was always dissolving and reforming, even as we named it and believed in its solidity. This is what happens with sensation. We feel a tightness in the chest or a warmth in the hands, and immediately we treat it as a solid fact. We say, "I have this feeling," as if the feeling were a stone we could carry from one room to another. We build stories around it. We decide what it means about us or about the day ahead. But the sensation itself has no interest in our story. It is already changing. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is not philosophy. It is an invitation to look closely at what is actually happening. Suffering arises not because sensations exist, but because we insist they should stay or insist they should leave. We clench around pleasure, wanting it to last. We brace against pain, wanting it to vanish. Both gestures are born from the same misunderstanding. We believe the sensation is solid and will remain unless we do something about it. But nothing conditioned holds its shape for long. The warmth in your hands right now is not the same warmth it was 3 breaths ago. The tightness in your shoulders is already loosening or deepening or moving slightly to the left. If you bring your attention to any single sensation and stay with it, not to fix it or understand it, but simply to observe it, you will see this directly. You might begin with something small, a tingling in your fingertips, a coolness where your breath enters your nostrils, a subtle pressure where your body meets the chair. Choose one sensation. Not the most intense, not the most interesting, just one that is present and easy to find. Let your attention rest there as you would rest your gaze on a cloud. At first the sensation may seem unchanging. You may think, "Yes, I feel this, and it is staying the same." But if you remain a little longer without judging or analyzing, you will notice the first shift. The tingling may pulse, the coolness may warm, the pressure may lighten or spread. The sensation you named a moment ago is already something else. This is vipassana, seeing clearly into the nature of things. It does not require belief or effort. It only requires that you stop insisting the sensation be other than it is and stop assuming it will remain. When you watch a cloud, you do not try to hold it in place. You do not feel betrayed when it changes. You simply see it as it moves. The same attention can be brought to the body. If you sit with one sensation for 1 minute, you will see it shift. You may see it dissolve entirely. You may see it replaced by another sensation you had not noticed before. What you will not see is a sensation that remains exactly the same. This is not a failure of attention. This is the nature of all conditioned things. They arise, they change, they pass. This is not a problem to solve. It is simply what is true. The suffering comes when we forget this, when we feel a sensation and immediately decide it defines us, when we feel discomfort and believe it will never end, when we feel ease and grip it tightly, afraid of what comes next. All of this is built on the assumption that the sensation is solid. But the sensation is more like a cloud. It seems still only because we are not watching closely enough. You do not need to believe this. You can see it for yourself. Choose one sensation right now. It does not matter which. Let your attention settle there without trying to change it. Watch it the way you would watch a cloud drifting across an open sky. See if it stays exactly the same. See if it holds its shape, or if it begins to dissolve and reform even as you observe it. 1 minute is enough. The sensation will show you what words cannot. There is a moment just before you reach for your phone. A flicker, a tightness in the chest, or a pull in the fingers. It is so fast that most of us never see it. We are already scrolling before we know we wanted to. The fish bites the hook and only then notices the line. Craving works this way. It does not announce itself. It moves beneath the surface of awareness, tugging us toward what we think will satisfy and away from what we think will harm. By the time we notice, we are already in motion, already leaning, already caught. The Buddha called this tanha, thirst. Not the ordinary thirst of the body, but a deeper pull, a reaching that never quite closes the gap between wanting and having. It is not wrong to want. The body needs food, the heart needs warmth, but craving is different. Craving believes that satisfaction is just one more thing away, one more bite, one more message, one more moment of relief. And when that thing arrives, the wanting does not stop. It shifts, it finds a new target. This is what we do not see clearly. We see the object, we see the action, we see the disappointment when the wanting returns. But we do not see the craving itself, the moment it arises, the shape it takes, the way it pulls. Vipassana means seeing clearly, not thinking clearly, not understanding clearly, seeing. The practice is simple. When craving arises, you look at it. You do not follow where it leads. You do not push it away. You see it the way you might see a wave forming in water. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. But first, you have to catch it, and that is harder than it sounds. The fish does not see the hook because it is focused on the bait. We do not see craving because we are focused on the thing we want. The phone, the snack, the relief, the validation. Our attention is already out there, reaching, and the craving moves in that blindness. So the practice begins with a single moment. The next time you reach for your phone, pause. Do not stop yourself from picking it up. Do not make it a rule. Just pause. One breath. And in that breath, feel what is happening in the body. Is there a tightness, a restlessness, a small ache of boredom or loneliness? Is there a belief that something on the screen will make this feeling go away? That pause is not about resisting. It is about seeing. You are learning to catch the craving before it becomes action, before the hand moves, before the mind justifies. You are standing at the edge of the current and noticing the pull. At first, you will miss it. You will already be scrolling before you remember to look. That is fine. The craving is fast. It has been running this way for a long time. But each time you remember, even after the fact, you are training the mind to turn toward what is usually invisible. You are learning the texture of wanting, the way it feels in the throat, the chest, the fingers, the way it whispers that relief is just one click away, and sometimes in that pause the craving will pass, not because you fought it, not because you were strong, but because you saw it, and seeing changes the relationship. The fish that sees the hook does not always bite, not out of discipline, but because the illusion is broken. The bait is still there, but the pull is different. You see the whole picture now. This is insight. Not a thought about craving. Not a memory of a teaching, but a direct encounter. You feel the wanting arise. You feel it peak. You feel it fade. And in that fading, you see that it was never as solid as it seemed. It was a wave, and waves do not last. Craving is the root, the teaching says, not the root of sin, not the root of failure, the root of suffering, because craving does not satisfy, it only renews itself. And as long as we follow it without seeing it, we are caught in a cycle we did not choose. Reaching, grasping, disappointed, reaching again. But when you see it arise, you have a choice, not the choice to stop wanting. That is not how this works, but the choice to not follow, to stay here in this moment with the feeling of wanting without moving toward the object, to let the wave rise and fall without getting swept away. The phone is still there, the craving may return, but you have seen something true. You have seen the gap between wanting and acting, and in that gap there is space. Space to breathe, space to choose, space to be free. There is a moment just before you pull your hand away from something sharp. The body knows what to do, but sometimes the hand does not pull away cleanly, it clenches. The fingers tighten around the thorn, and what might have been a brief sting becomes something else. The tightness itself adds pressure. The pain sharpens not because the thorn grew, but because the hand forgot how to open. This happens more often than we notice, not with thorns, but with sounds, with waiting, with the way someone speaks to us or does not speak to us. Something irritates, and before we have even named it, the body has already begun to close. The jaw sets, the breath shortens, the shoulders lift slightly as if bracing for impact. We think we are protecting ourselves, we think we are managing the situation, but the tightness we create is its own discomfort layered on top of the first. Vipassana means seeing clearly, not seeing more or seeing harder, just seeing what is actually present. And what is often present beneath the story we tell about why we're upset is this, a sensation of pushing, a leaning away. The body trying to make space between itself and what it does not want. You can feel this in small moments. The notification sound that interrupts your focus. The question someone asks when you are already tired. The traffic light that turns red just as you approach. These are not emergencies, but the body responds as if they are. There is a flare of heat, a tightening in the chest or throat, a sudden hardness in the mind. And then, if you are not watching, the tightness becomes the problem you are solving. You snap at someone. You grip the steering wheel. You replay the irritation in your mind long after the moment has passed. The teaching here is simple, though not always easy. Do not turn from what is difficult. Meet it with a soft gaze, and it will teach you. This does not mean you must like what is happening. It does not mean you stay in harm's way or pretend that pain is pleasant. It means you stop adding the second layer, the layer that comes from clenching. When something irritates you today, notice where in your body you feel the resistance. Not the irritation itself, but the response to it. The place where you brace. This is not an exercise in analysis. You do not need to understand why you are resisting or what it means about you. You are simply noticing that resistance has a texture. It lives somewhere, in the tightness of your jaw, in the heat rising in your face, in the way your breath has become shallow without you deciding to breathe that way. The metaphor of the hand around the thorn is useful because it shows how automatic this clenching is. You do not choose it. It happens before thought. But once you see it, once you feel the tightness as a separate thing from the thorn itself, something shifts. The hand does not have to stay closed. It never did. It only felt that way because the closing happened so fast. Aversion is not wrong. It is part of how we navigate the world. The body moves away from heat, from danger, from what harms it. But most of what we push against in a day is not actually dangerous. It is just unpleasant or inconvenient or not what we wanted. And the pushing we do in response, the tightening and bracing, does not make the unpleasantness go away. It makes it denser. It keeps us locked in contact with the very thing we are trying to escape. You might notice this in a conversation. Someone says something that lands wrong. Before you have even decided how to respond, the body has already stiffened. The face has already changed. And now you're not just hearing their words. You are also managing your own reaction to your reaction. The tightness has become the center of your attention even though you think you are focused on them. This is where the soft gaze comes in. Not turning away, but also not gripping. Just seeing. The irritation is here. The tightness is here. They are both sensations. Neither one is a command. The irritation does not require you to act. The tightness does not require you to justify it or solve it. They are just what is happening in this moment, in this body. When you meet aversion this way, without adding more aversion on top of it, something quiet happens. The sensation is still present, but it is no longer solid. It moves, it changes. Sometimes it fades, sometimes it stays, but it loses its urgency. You realize that the tightness was optional, not easy to release perhaps, but not inevitable either. The hand can open, even around a thorn, even when it has been clenched for a long time. It opens not by force, but by noticing that it is closed, by feeling the tension as sensation, not as truth. And in that noticing, the fingers soften, the pressure eases. What remains is just the thorn. And a thorn, by itself, is something you can see clearly. You sit still, and the mind does not stop. It moves from one thing to the next, a constant current that feels like it has no beginning and no end. You might think this is just how consciousness works, a stream without pause. But if you listen closely, if you sit long enough without following the flow, you begin to notice something else. Between one thought and the next, there is a gap, brief, almost invisible, like the silence between two notes that gives music its shape. Without that silence, music would be noise, one sound pressed against another with no room to breathe. But when a note ends and the next has not yet begun, something opens. The silence is not empty. It holds the music together. It lets you hear what was just played and prepares you for what comes next. Your mind works the same way. Thoughts come and go like guests. You are the space in which they appear. Most of us never notice this. We are so caught in the stream of thinking that we do not see the gaps. One thought touches the edge of another, and we believe there is no separation. We identify with the flow itself. We think we are the thinking. But you are not the guest, you are the room. This is not philosophy, it is something you can observe directly. Sit somewhere quiet, let your body settle. You do not need to stop your thoughts. You could not if you tried. Instead, watch them the way you might watch cars passing on a distant road. One thought moves through. It says something about the past or the future, about someone you know or something you need to do. Let it move. Do not follow it. Just wait. At some point, that thought will end. It will not announce itself. It will simply stop being there. And for a moment, before the next one forms, there is quiet. Not the quiet of effort. Not the quiet of forcing your mind to be still. Just the natural pause that was always there, hidden beneath the noise. This pause is not dramatic. It does not feel like revelation. It is subtle, ordinary, easy to miss. But if you catch it once, you begin to see it everywhere. Between the thought of what you will eat later and the thought of something someone said yesterday, between the worry and the plan, between the memory and the question, the silence between two notes that gives music its shape. You might sit for a while and feel like nothing is happening. Thoughts keep coming. They layer over each other, thick and insistent. That is fine. You are not trying to create silence. You are learning to notice the silence that is already there. It does not need you to make it. It only needs you to stop ignoring it. When you do catch that gap, do not grab it. Do not try to hold it or make it longer. Just recognize it. Oh, there it is, the space between. And then the next thought will come, and that is fine too. Thoughts come and go like guests. You are the space in which they appear. If you sit like this often enough, something begins to shift. You start to feel less trapped by your thinking. The thoughts still come, but they do not pull you the way they used to. You see them arrive and you see them leave, and you begin to trust the stillness they arise from. That stillness is not something you achieve. It is what you are when you stop moving with every thought that passes through. This is vipassana, seeing clearly, not seeing something far away or hidden, just seeing what is here, the nature of thinking, the nature of awareness, the way one thought ends and another begins, and the quiet that lives in between. You do not need to believe this. You only need to sit and wait for the end of one thought. Notice the brief quiet before the next one starts. Not once, but again and again. Let yourself rest there, even if only for a breath. That is the practice. That is the whole practice. The silence is not the goal. It is the ground. It was here before the thinking started. It will be here when the thinking stops. You are not trying to get somewhere. You are learning to recognize where you already are. The space that holds everything, the stillness that thoughts arise from. There is a mirror in the center of experience, and it has been reflecting everything you have ever known. Colors, sounds, sensations, thoughts, the feeling of your breath moving in and out. Everything passes through this mirror. But if you turn to look at the mirror itself, you will notice something strange. The mirror has no face of its own. It shows the world, but it cannot show itself. We spend most of our lives assuming someone is behind the mirror, a watcher, a thinker, a self that stands apart from what is seen and heard and felt. We say things like, "I am watching my breath," or "I am noticing this thought," and the language makes it sound as if there are two things present: the breath and the one who watches it, the thought and the one who notices it. This assumption feels so natural that we rarely question it. It becomes the foundation of how we understand our lives. But the Buddha suggested something different. He said that when you search for the one who sees, you find only seeing. When you search for the thinker, you find only thoughts. There is no separate observer standing behind experience. There is only the flow of experience itself, appearing and disappearing moment by moment. This is not a belief to adopt. It is something you can look into directly right now with your own attention. You might begin by asking yourself a very simple question. Who is aware right now? Not as a philosophical exercise, but as a genuine inquiry. Who is the one hearing these words? Who is noticing the feeling of your body against the chair or the bed? Who is aware of the sounds in the room? When you ask this question, something interesting happens. You look for an answer. You turn your attention inward, searching for the one who is aware. And what you find is not a solid thing. You do not find a little person sitting behind your eyes, watching everything unfold. You do not find a control center or a headquarters where decisions are made. Instead, you find more experience. A thought arises. A sensation appears. Maybe there is a sense of space, or a feeling of presence, or the sound of breath. But there is no one you can point to and say, "That is the watcher." The mirror reflects, but it has no face. Awareness is present, but when you look for the one who is aware, you find only awareness itself, empty of any solid center. This can feel disorienting at first. We are so used to the idea of being someone, of having a self that persists through time, that the absence of it can seem like a loss. But if you stay with the looking, something else begins to reveal itself. The absence of a solid self is not emptiness in the sense of lack. It is openness. It is the spaciousness that allows experience to arise without being trapped or owned by anyone. A thought appears, and there is no thinker holding it. It simply arises, lingers for a moment, and dissolves. A sensation comes, and there is no one it belongs to. It is just sensation, vivid and immediate, without a story attached. The mirror reflects everything, but nothing sticks to it. Nothing leaves a mark. You can test this again right now. Notice the feeling of your breath, just the raw sensation of air moving. Now ask who is noticing this. Look for the noticer. Do not settle for a concept or a word. Look directly. what you'll actually find. If you are honest, you will find that the moment you look, the sense of a separate self becomes vague. It slips away. What remains is just the breath, just the noticing happening on its own. There is no gap between awareness and what is being aware of. They are not two separate things. They are one seamless movement. This is what the Buddha called non-self. Not the idea that you do not exist, but the direct seeing that what you call I is not a fixed, independent entity. It is a process, a flow, a mirror with no face, reflecting everything without claiming anything as its own. When you see this clearly, even for a moment, something shifts. The tightness that comes from defending yourself begins to loosen. The need to control every thought and feeling softens. Because if there is no one behind the mirror, then there is no one who needs to be perfect, no one who needs to hold it all together, no one who can fail. There is just this: breath, sound, sensation, awareness, all of it arising and passing in the mirror that has no face, and the strangeness of looking for a looker and finding only looking. We walk through the world drawing lines. This thing, not that. My body, your body. The chair, the floor. We see edges everywhere, as if the universe were made of separate pieces laid side by side, but nothing actually stands alone. Look at the breath moving in your chest right now. It seems like your breath, something happening inside the boundary of your skin. But the air came from somewhere. It passed through the room, through the window, across the street, from the trees that released it hours ago. The trees pulled it from sunlight and soil, the soil from rain, the rain from ocean and sky. Touch one thread of a spider's web and the whole structure trembles. The breath in your chest is not separate from the world outside. It is the world moving through. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. All things arise together in mutual dependence. The teaching is simple to say, harder to see. We have spent our lives learning to name things, to sort them, to believe in their independence. The cup on the table feels solid and complete. But the cup is clay, which is earth and water, and the hands that shaped it. It is the kiln's heat, the glaze, the idea someone had for its form. It is the table beneath it, holding it up. It is the light that lets you see it. Remove any one of these conditions and the cup, as you know it, disappears. Not because it was destroyed, but because it never stood alone to begin with. We see separation because it is useful. You cannot pick up a cup without treating it as a distinct thing. You cannot walk through a door without recognizing the difference between wall and opening. The mind creates boundaries to navigate the world, and this is not wrong. But we forget that these boundaries are drawn by us, not discovered in the nature of things. When you believe something exists independently, you relate to it differently. You think it can be possessed, controlled, kept the same. You think it can be removed from the web without consequence. But pull one thread and the whole structure shifts. A spider's web has no center that holds while the edges stay still. Every thread supports every other thread. Touch one, and the tremor reaches all. You can see this directly, not as philosophy, but as perception. Choose one thing you see right now. It does not need to be special. A wall, a shadow, the feeling of weight in your hands. Just one thing. Now trace back 3 conditions that allow it to exist in this moment. If you chose the wall, you might notice the light that makes it visible. Without light, the wall vanishes from your awareness. You might notice your eyes open and functioning. Close them, and the wall is gone from experience. You might notice the stillness of your body, which lets you focus. Move suddenly, and your attention scatters, the wall recedes. 3 conditions, and already the wall is not independent. It arises because these other things arise. It depends on light, on eyes, on the steadiness of your attention. And each of those depends on something else. The light depends on the sun or the bulb, on electricity or fusion, on the wiring in the house or the core of a star. The eyes depend on the brain, on oxygen in the blood, on the heart beating without your command. The stillness depends on the ground beneath you, on the building's foundation, on the earth itself holding everything up. You do not need to trace every thread back to the beginning of time. Just 3 conditions. Just enough to see that what seemed solid and separate is actually a meeting place. The thing you are looking at is not a thing. It is a moment when causes gather. This changes how you hold experience. When you see that nothing stands alone, you stop trying to freeze it. You stop demanding that it stay the way it is. A thought arises, and you know it depends on mood, on memory, on the state of your body. It is not solid truth. It is conditions meeting. When the conditions shift, the thought dissolves. You do not have to fight it or feed it. You see it as part of the web, trembling for a moment, then still. The same with feeling. Anger seems so personal, so much like it belongs to you. But trace it back. The words someone said, the expectation you carried, the tiredness in your body that made everything sharper. The anger is not independent. It is these threads crossing. When you see this, the anger does not vanish, but it loosens. It is not who you are. It is what arose when conditions allowed. Nothing stands alone, not even for a moment. Not the breath, not the thought, not the sense of being a separate self watching it all. The watcher is also part of the web. Attention itself arises because of conditions. The sense of I depends on memory, on language, on the body's boundary. Remove the conditions and the sense of I shifts, fades, reforms differently. You are not separate from what you see. You arise together. There is a small stone in your shoe. You feel it pressing into the sole of your foot. That pressure is real. It has weight, location, a particular quality of sharpness or dullness. But then something else begins. You think about how long you will have to walk with this stone. You imagine the blister forming. You wonder why you did not check your shoes before leaving. You picture the entire day ahead, every step now carrying this discomfort. The stone has not changed, the pressure has not increased, but the mountain has appeared. This is what the mind does with pain. It takes one clear sensation and builds a world around it. The Buddha called this the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain itself, the actual physical sensation or emotional ache. That arrow lands, it hurts. But then we pick up a second arrow and strike ourselves again with the story of what this pain means, where it came from, how long it will last, what it says about us. You need not be struck twice. Vipassana means seeing clearly. It means looking directly at what is present, without the layers we habitually add. When you sit quietly and bring attention to the body, you will feel discomfort. The knee begins to ache. The back tightens. There is heat or cold or pressure. This is the first arrow. It is simply sensation. It has texture, intensity, location. It arises and it changes. But watch what happens next. The mind says, this should not be here, or this will get worse, or I cannot handle this, or something is wrong with me. These are not sensations, these are stories. The practice is to name the bare sensation without adding why it is there or what it means. You feel tightness in the shoulder. You do not need to know if it came from yesterday's work or poor posture or stress. You do not need to predict whether it will spread or fade. You simply note tightness. You feel heat in the chest. You do not need to decide if it is anger or anxiety or something you ate. You note heat. The sensation is enough. It does not require a narrative. This is not easy. The mind is quick. It wants to explain, to solve, to make meaning. It wants to turn the stone into a mountain because the mountain feels more important, more worthy of attention. A stone is small. A mountain demands action. But the mountain is imagined. The stone is real. When you practice this way, something shifts. You begin to see the gap between the feeling and the story about the feeling. You notice that the ache in your knee is just an ache, a pulsing pressure that comes and goes in waves. But the thought, "I cannot sit like this," is separate. It arrives after the sensation. It is not the sensation itself. You can feel the ache without believing the thought. You can let the thought pass and return to the bare quality of the pressure. This is equanimity, not the absence of pain, but the absence of the second arrow. You are not trying to make the discomfort go away. You are not gritting your teeth and enduring. You are simply meeting the sensation as it is, without adding the weight of your interpretation. The ache is still there, but the mountain has dissolved. You can practice this anywhere. You do not need to be sitting in meditation. You feel a headache beginning. Instead of immediately thinking about the rest of your day, the meeting you have to attend, the medication you might need, you pause. You bring attention to the actual sensation. Where is it? What does it feel like? Is it throbbing or steady? Sharp or dull? You stay with the raw experience for a few breaths. You may notice that the sensation itself is not as overwhelming as the story you are about to tell about it. The same is true with emotional pain. You feel sadness. Before you ask why you are sad, or what is wrong with you, or how long this will last, you simply note the sensation in the body. There is heaviness in the chest. There is a tightness in the throat. There is heat behind the eyes. These are sensations. They are real. They are enough. The story can wait. This is not suppression. You are not ignoring the pain or pretending it does not matter. You are looking at it more closely than you ever have. You are seeing it clearly, without the distortion of your narrative. And in that clear seeing, you often find that the sensation is bearable. It is the story that makes it unbearable. The stone is still in your shoe. But you are no longer climbing a mountain. You are taking one step, feeling one pressure, breathing once. That is all that is asked. There is a way we hold ourselves that feels necessary. A tightness in the chest when we remember what we said yesterday. A clenching when someone speaks to us in that tone. We think this hardness protects us. We think it keeps us safe from being hurt again or from becoming careless. But if you watch closely, you can feel how this hardness also keeps us separate. From others, yes, but also from our own tenderness. The Buddha taught that all beings wish to be free from suffering. Not just the ones we love, not just the ones who are kind to us. All beings. The person who cut you off in traffic. The colleague who took credit for your work. The family member whose words still sting when you remember them. Each one carries their own weight. Each one wakes up with their own fears. This is not a command to forgive. It is not a demand that you feel warmth where there is still pain. It is simply an invitation to notice something true. That the person you find difficult also knows what it feels like to be afraid. Also knows what it feels like to want things to be different than they are. This knowing does not erase what happened, but it can soften the edges of how you hold it. Think of ice held in a warm hand. At first it is solid, sharp. You can feel its edges clearly, but as the warmth continues, something begins to change, not all at once. Not because the hand is forcing anything, just because warmth meets cold and something natural happens. The ice begins to soften. It becomes water. It changes form without losing what it is made of. The heart can do this too, not through effort, not through trying to feel something you do not feel, but through a kind of gentle attention, through letting the truth of another person's struggle touch the truth of your own. There is someone you find difficult. You know who they are. Their face comes to mind easily. Maybe it is someone you see often. Maybe it is someone you have not seen in years, but whose words still live in your body. For a moment, let them come to mind, not to analyze what they did, not to rehearse your side of the story, just to let their face appear. Now notice what happens in your chest. Is there tightness? Closing? A pulling away? This is not wrong. This is just what the body does when it remembers pain. Stay with that sensation for a breath. Let it be exactly as it is. And then, very quietly, see if you can sense that this person also struggles, that they too have known fear, that they too have acted from confusion or hurt. You do not need to know the details of their suffering. You do not need to understand why they did what they did. Just acknowledge that they are a being who, like you, wishes to be free from pain. As you hold this knowing, see what happens. Does the tightness shift even slightly? Does something soften even for a moment? If it does not, that is fine. The practice is not to manufacture a feeling. The practice is to offer the possibility and see what the heart does with it. This is what the ice does when held in warmth. It does not decide to melt. It does not try to become water. The warmth simply touches it and something shifts. Your attention is like that warmth. When you let yourself see another struggle without turning away, something in you can soften. Not because you are forcing compassion, but because seeing clearly has its own effect. You might silently say, "May you be free from suffering," or simply, "May you find ease." The words do not matter as much as the intention beneath them. The willingness to let another's pain exist alongside your own without hardening against it. This does not mean you must spend time with this person. It does not mean you must put yourself in harm's way. Compassion is not the same as allowing harm. But it does mean you can hold their humanity without holding yourself so tightly. You can acknowledge their struggle without making your heart into stone. Stay with this for a few breaths. Notice if the sensation in your chest changes. Notice if there is more space around the difficulty, and if there is not, notice that too. The practice is in the noticing, in the willingness to try, in the quiet offering of ease to someone who, just like you, is trying to find their way through this life. The ice becomes water not because it wants to, but because warmth is patient. Your heart can soften not because you demand it, but because you let the truth of shared struggle touch you. This is vipassana, seeing clearly, seeing that all beings want what you want, and letting that seeing change how you hold them. There is a kind of thirst that comes not from lack, but from wanting something other than what we already have. We stand before a cup of water, clear and cool, and wonder if it should taste like wine. We hold it up to the light, searching for something more. Meanwhile, our throat stays dry. Vipassana means seeing clearly, not seeing something special, not uncovering hidden truths that require years of effort to perceive. Just seeing what is actually here without the layer of wanting it to be different. The breath moving in and out, the weight of the body on the chair, the sound of a car passing outside. These things are not preparation for clarity. They are clarity itself if we stop asking them to be something else. We have learned to associate spiritual practice with transformation, with becoming someone new. We imagine that if we sit long enough, practice hard enough, penetrate deep enough, we will finally arrive at a state worth having. And then we think the ordinary will fall away and reveal something luminous beneath. But this is the very thing that keeps us from seeing. We are looking past what is here toward what we hope will come. The Zen tradition offers a simple sentence that undoes this waiting. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Not before enlightenment, strive and seek. Not during enlightenment, experience bliss and transcendence. After. When the search is over, what remains? The wood, the water, the same tasks that were here all along. The difference is not in the tasks, it is in the seeing. When you chop wood with full attention, the axe is just an axe. The log is just a log. There is the lift, the arc, the split. There is no one watching themselves chop wood, narrating the experience, wondering if they're doing it right. There is only chopping. This is not a diminished state. This is the end of division. The one who chops and the chopping are not two separate things. They arise together, and when the stroke is finished, they fall away together. Vipassana is not about achieving this state. It is about noticing that this is already how things are. We are the ones who add the extra layer. We are the ones who stand apart and evaluate, who compare this moment to other moments, who measure our practice against an imagined ideal. The breath does not do this, it simply moves. The body does not do this, it simply sits. Clarity is available the moment we stop insisting it should look different. The cup of water does not apologize for being water. It does not try to impress you. It offers exactly what it is, and if you drink, your thirst is quenched. This is enough. This has always been enough. But we have trained ourselves to believe that enough is not enough, that the ordinary is only a placeholder for something greater. So we overlook the water and stay thirsty. You do not need to travel somewhere else to practice Vipassana. You do not need a cushion or a teacher or a quiet room, though these can be helpful. What you need is already in front of you. The dish you are washing, the steps you are taking from one room to another, the email you are writing. These are not interruptions to practice. They are the place where seeing happens. Try this. Choose one ordinary task today. Not something meaningful or significant. Something small. Folding a towel, drinking a glass of water, locking the door. Do it as if it were the only thing in the world, not as if it were important, as if it were the only thing. Let everything else fall away. Feel the texture of the towel in your hands. Notice the temperature of the water as it moves down your throat. Hear the click of the lock. Stay with the sensations. When the mind wanders toward what comes next or what happened before, bring it back, not harshly, gently, the way you would guide a child's attention back to a flower they had looked away from. This is not practice for later clarity. This is clarity. Right here, in the folding, in the drinking, in the locking. The mind will want to judge this as too simple, too mundane. It will say that real practice must be more than this. But that voice is the very thing we are learning to see through. It is the voice that keeps us seeking, that keeps us thirsty in front of the cup. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Not because the wood and water have become sacred, because they were never anything other than what they are. And seeing them clearly, without wanting them to be wine, without wanting ourselves to be someone else seeing them, this is the path. This is all the path has ever been. The practice does not end when you open your eyes. Vipassana is not a technique you perform for 20 minutes and then set aside. It is a way of meeting the world. Once you have begun to see how sensations arise and pass, how thoughts form and dissolve, how clinging tightens and releases, that seeing does not stop. It continues in the kitchen, in conversation, in the middle of frustration or joy. You may not always be formal in your attention. That is natural, but something has shifted. You have tasted the difference between being lost in experience and seeing experience clearly. That taste stays with you. There will be days when the mind is murky, when old patterns return with force, when you forget everything you have learned. This is not failure. This is simply the nature of a mind that has been conditioned over years, over lifetimes, if you follow that thread. The practice is not about perfection. It is about returning. Again and again, without drama, you come back to what is here. And in that returning, something softens. The tightness you once thought was necessary begins to loosen. The stories you told about who you are and what you need start to feel less solid. Not because you have replaced them with better stories, but because you have seen them as stories. You have watched them flicker in and out of being. And once you see that, you cannot fully believe them in the same way again. This is freedom. but it is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive with fanfare. It is more like the feeling of setting down a heavy bag you did not realize you were carrying. As you move forward, let the practice be gentle. There is no race. There is no distant summit you must reach before you are allowed to rest. Each moment of clear seeing is complete in itself. Each breath met with awareness is enough. And as you continue, let your practice include all beings. This is where vipassana opens into metta, into loving kindness. When you see clearly into your own suffering, when you watch craving and aversion move through you, you begin to understand that this is not yours alone. Every person you pass on the street is navigating the same currents. Every difficult person, every stranger, every loved one is caught in the same web of wanting and fearing, clinging and pushing away. This understanding naturally gives rise to compassion, not as a moral obligation, but as a simple recognition. If I suffer when I cling, then so do you. If I find peace in letting go, then may you find that peace as well. So let your awareness extend outward now, softly, without force. May you be free from suffering. May you be at ease. May you know the peace that comes from seeing clearly. And may all beings, known and unknown, near and far, be free from suffering. May they be safe. May they be healthy. May they live with ease. This is not a prayer to an external force. This is an acknowledgement of connection. This is the heart's natural response to clear seeing. When you understand that separation is an illusion, that we are all woven into the same fabric of causes and conditions, kindness is not something you have to manufacture. It is what remains when confusion falls away. Let this kindness include yourself. Let it be unconditional. You do not have to earn it through perfect practice or flawless insight. You are worthy of kindness simply because you are here, because you are aware, because you too are navigating this strange and difficult experience of being alive. There is more to explore, always. The path does not end. If you wish to continue, there are other teachings waiting, other dimensions of practice to discover. But there is no hurry. What you have touched here is enough for now. Let it settle. Let it work in you quietly, the way water shapes stone. Rest in the knowing that you have everything you need. The breath is always here. The body is always available. Awareness is always present, even when it seems hidden. You do not have to go anywhere or become anyone else. You only have to see what is already here. May your practice deepen. May your heart stay open. May you walk this path with patience and care. And may all beings everywhere know the freedom that comes from seeing clearly,